Simone sealed his face with some Grantis Granto makeup fixer, spraying it liberally to make certain nothing would slide off during his busy day ahead. Face affixed, Simone pulled on his Mesa suit and tightened his tie. 2:45 already? Simone hastened through his home and air-kissed his wife. She was still wearing her pyjamas and sat at her own dresser, gently rubbing moisturizer into her skin. Tuesday was her day off, and she would be spending the majority of it maintaining her complexion. Admiring himself in the hallway mirror, which was framed with bulbs, bright enough to reveal every single possible flaw in the beholder, Simone felt satisfied. He left for work. Chapter 2. Unfortunately, Simone's route to work took him above the streets of the city suburbs, where the poor unfashionables lived. The windows of the pristine vibro-rail carriage revealed the depths below, where the houses were made for practicality instead of design. They looked, to Simone, like terrible parodies of the packaging some of his least fabulous items of clothing came in. The uglies, the unwashed, unmanicured masses, the unfashionables. It pained him to see them down there, milling around without the first idea of how dreadful they appeared. Their untrained aesthetic senses were so underdeveloped they could barely comprehend their own hideousness. To think they did actual labour, to think they used things like shovels and wrenches and drills. Simone shuddered, but found himself unable to look away. The horror of it drew him in completely. It was unfathomable that people existed like that. The vibro-rail carriage slipped through a tunnel, and suddenly he was there, at the heart of the horror, where beyond the unornamented fences the unfashionables lumbered around. If only Simone's tear ducts hadn't been removed, why, he would have wept for them. Feeling his guts squirm around inside him, he watched them go by, bumping into each other, smiling their unpainted smiles, staring open-mouthed and lustily at the vibro-rail train as it swept past, at its contents, the beautiful Glitterati. To think that they were the same species, it boggled the mind. Simone secretly hoped the unfashionables would all catch a disease and die. Of course, it wasn't fashionable to think such thoughts. The fashion was that the uglies were to be pitied, and charity in the form of discarded past-season wardrobes was a sign of good character. But Simone only said he sent his old wardrobes down to the unfashionables. In reality, he burned his clothes when he was done with them. The mere thought of his discarded clothes touching the skin of any of those aesthetically impaired creatures made him feel ill. So caught up in horror was he that Simone barely noticed the vibro-rail gliding to a halt. As he stood, he realized he had been alone in his carriage, and was the only one leaving the train. The vast and crystalline Tremptor Tower rose ahead, and Simone felt his heart lift. It was like working in heaven. Those fluted glass cylinders, which made the whole building look like an enormous celestial organ, always made him smile. He was careful with his smile, of course. It simply wouldn't do to affect his face before making his entrance. He checked his watch. Precisely 20 minutes late. Perfect. There was a queue at the front entrance, and the instant Simone set his eyes upon it, he felt his heart stop. Every single man and woman in the queue was wearing purple. What could it mean? Had he missed an issue of one of the 116 different fashion magazines he was subscribed to? Holding a hand delicately to his chest, Simone felt as if he should flee. But it was too late. He was already caught up in the queue, and those behind him. Simone risked a glance backwards. Open mouths and wide eyes. Horror. Maybe it was a joke. Maybe everyone in Tremptor Tower was in on it. Maybe he would make his entrance and everyone would applaud and laugh, and he would laugh with them, and they would all drink champagne and reminisce for years to come about how delightful the jest had been. The queue moved forwards. Then it was Simone's turn. Throwing his shoulders back, Simone sashayed inside. Absolute silence. The hands poised mid-clap to receive him were completely still. The long red runway felt endless, but still he sashayed on, eyes on the horizon, lips pursed. Not a single camera flashed. But there, at last, his salvation, the steps leading off the entrance runway and over to the lifts. He would have run the last few meters, but not a single drop of sweat had been shed in Tremptor Tower since its construction, and he certainly wouldn't be the first to desecrate the hallowed ground. Inside the lift, Simone pressed the button for the 56th floor with one shaking finger. Everyone around him was wearing purple. They kept glancing at him, but he kept his eyes down, studying the elevator.